Alright, geneticists, so now we're going to get into it a bit, and we're going to talk about what are genes. Basically, by the end of this, you want to be able to describe what a gene is, what chromosomes are, and how they're arranged within the cells. So, you need to remember that genes are segments of DNA that encode for biological information. And they're also, the DNA is organized into chromosomes so that it allows them to be folded and compressed so they take up less space. Alright, so what's a chromosome? Basically, these are what carry the genetic information. They're made up of DNA and protein combined as chromatin. So this whole thing here is chromatin. So it's a complex. Complex meaning it's two things joined together. So each chromosome contains many genes. Chromosomes, they come in pairs. One from mum, one from dad. Now remember, this is one chromosome and this is one chromosome. Again, this is a chromatid on its own, so like these parts together comes a chromatid. This is two chromatids. So this is after duplication before it gets separated out again. Oh, and cytologists who are cell scientists or cell biologists, they label them with numbers. So instead of like Harry. So when a somatic cell divides as body cells, the process is called mitosis. Remember this, before mitosis, the cell copies all of the chromosomes and then it divides, or not before mitosis, before division, copies all the chromosomes, then it divides, and when they duplicate, they look like this. They look like a letter X. Let's see if one's, there you go, looks like a letter X. But when they double, the two halves are called chromatids. Again, see that? And they're joined at the centromere. Cool. So there are 46 chromosomes in humans, 23 pairs. Everyone's got the set from mum and dad that match. There is the sex chromosomes, which are a bit different. So the mother's egg always contains the sex chromosome X, while the father's sperm can contain either an X or a Y. The reason mum only contains X is because that's all women have, or all females have. Men have both X and Ys. And so it's the father that determines the sex of the child. So if you've ever got a dad out there who's like, oh, why can't I have a boy? It's not mum's fault, that's from dad. So different animals or different organisms in general have different numbers of chromosomes, and it's not a case of the more complex you are, the more chromosomes you have. For example, there are some slugs out there which are considered fairly primitive form of life, and one of them has, I think, upwards of 52 when we have 46. So if you don't have the usual number of chromosomes, it's rarely a bonus. It's usually it causes problems. So usually if there's an unusual numbers, whether it's more or less, most often the result is death, or there's a peculiarity. And so you get, for example, a genetic disorder like Down syndrome, which is an extra chromosome 21, or Klinefelter, which is having two X chromosomes for a male, so he has three, so he's got two X's and a Y. So some genetic disorders are more common than others. For example, Down syndrome, relatively common. Klinefelter's fairly rare. Alright, so that's chromosomes. So what's a gene? Basically, it's a section of DNA, and each chromosome can have thousands of genes. There are multiple versions of genes, and these are called alleles, and they can be expressed differently. For example, blonde hair and dark brown hair are different alleles or versions of the same gene. So alleles can differ by. This is the way a gene can be different, or allele. The order of the bases, so that's your C's, your T's, your G's, your A's. If they're in a different order, the gene might mean something different. The length of the strand, so there might be a section missing or a section added into the middle somewhere of a gene. Now, that's the two ways. So genes code for proteins using those 4 base pairs, and they make up 3 base pair codes for building blocks of proteins. So for example, if you go, I'll see if it's not popping up next. Okay, so you go A, T, T, C, G, C, A, whatever. These 3 here would code for 1 protein building block called an amino acid. These 3 code for the next, and so forth all the way down. And essentially, they're added up like a chain. So these little building blocks get added together. And that's how genes work. So genes make proteins. All right, it's what genes do. It's all they do, really. And these are just a rough example rough table of the different types of proteins you might see. So you've got enzymes, you've got transport proteins, storage proteins, contractile, so they cause the muscles to contract, protection proteins, these are things that fight off disease, hormones, these are proteins that go to other parts of the body and tell it what to do, structural proteins, um, these are the things which make connective tissue, and toxins. Some of these are quite deadly, and yeah, so just knock that table off so you've got examples of them. These are different types. So, and each protein has a function. Now, some variations in the genes, the way they work is they stop a protein from working. So, is melanin there? Melanin's not there. The protein which gives hair its color is called melanin, or skin its color, sorry. Skin its color is called melanin. And if the gene is not working, you won't produce as much melanin. So people with pale skin don't have as many don't have the genes that make their melanin will be faulty and they won't produce as much melanin. Where if you have very, very dark skin, because you've got, I think, 3 different genes to make melanin. If you have extremely dark skin, you have all 3 genes working perfectly. So yeah, anyway, see you in class.